Thank everyone for being here. For those of you who don't know, this is the Lake DeForest Reservoir. It's extremely important to this county. About 1 out of every 3 residents get their drinking water right from here. So we're here today because of the recent discovery of a highly toxic and very dangerous type of chemical known as PFAS. And it was found in Rockland and Westchester homes, schools, and communities. Now, we all read about the problems up in Hoosick Falls, which is in the Rensselaer County near Albany. We read about the problems in Newburgh. I've been working on those for a very long time. Their whole water supply was put out. They had to buy New York City water because Stewart Air Force Base, when they were cleaning the airplanes, they used PFAS and it got into the reservoir. But now it's here. Over 300,000 residents of Rockland County learned late last year that drinking water sources had PFAS above the New York limit. Across the river, Westchester and Dutchess just had do not drink water advisories last month, issued for 3 schools, including 2 elementary schools. So we're here to say to EPA, enough is enough. It's time to get to work and take the first steps to address and remediate this scourge of PFAS that's all over New York right now. It's not only in Newburgh, it's not only up near Albany and Hoosick Falls, it's out on Long Island at Gabreski and many other places. So I am here to announce a 3-pronged plan to deal with this PFAS issue, and Congressman Jones and I are going to get on the federal EPA to get with it and implement this plan ASAP. Unlike these toxic PFAS chemicals, which are complex and manufactured, which they're used for things like Teflon and fabric softener, fabric protectors, firefighting foam, and stain repellents. My plan, our plan, is straightforward and simple, not complicated like the chemical of PFAS. We're calling on 3 things. First, we're calling on EPA to set drinking water standards for 2 of the most prevalent PFAS chemicals, PFOA and PFOS. It's called an MCL, a Maximum Contaminant Level. No one has said, and I have to say in the last 4 years of the Trump administration, they didn't do anything about PFAS. We had a fight in Congress to get stuff doing because they were unwilling. And so they haven't set a level, which is called MCL, Maximum Contaminant Level. So you know when it becomes dangerous. We don't know, we don't have an answer yet. We know it's no good for you, but we don't know what the level is before it becomes dangerous. Yep, it's amazing. Right now there's no legal limit set by the federal government on how much of this highly toxic chemical can be in drinking water. So communities can't know how safe the water is. That's not a good thing. This action was promised for years by the previous administration. But now, as Majority Leader of the Senate, I get to visit with all the new nominees and determine whether I should put them on the floor, which I usually do. But I get to ask them a lot of questions. And we're asking the new EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, to move swiftly on setting this MCL, this Maximum Contaminant Level, because any more delay could cause irreversible harm. We sponsored legislation. I was one of the co-sponsors of legislation to force EPA to set the MCL, but it didn't pass under Mitch McConnell's Senate. I don't think we're going to have to pass legislation now because we have a new EPA that's far more friendly to cleaning up our drinking water. The second point is calling for the EPA to immediately review the health data for all PFAS chemicals and recommend specific actions that can be taken against all of them. Why do I say that? There are about 9,000 chemicals as part of this family. Now we know about the 2 of them. They're probably the 2 most prevalent, the PFOA and the PFOS. But there are lots more. What's the aggregate effect? That's what we're asking. We don't know. You can't kick the can down the road and look only at 2. We got to look at all of them because there are so many. And that's for the benefit of people here in Rockland. It may not be PFOS or PFOA that's the whole contaminant level here in the DeForest Reservoir and elsewhere. And finally, We're asking EPA to phase out non-essential uses of PFAS chemicals once and for all. Right now, PFAS is still allowed in clothes and food packaging and every other everyday products, and there are alternatives that can be used that are non-toxic. We ought to phase it out. That won't affect present contamination, but it will greatly prevent future contamination. Okay? Here's a scary fact. Exposure to these kinds of chemicals has been linked to increased health risks, birth defects, cancers that impact organs like kidney and thyroid. So whether you're a parent in Westchester or a student in Dutchess or a senior in Newburgh or just renting your apartment here in Rockland, you got to care about this. So that's why we're here. We're going to work hard to get EPA to get on the ball, institute our three-pronged plan so that we can get to work here and make sure that this water is safe. The bottom line, when it comes to drinking water in Rockland County, we can't take chances. Only crystal clear federal standards will get us crystal clear water. Okay, so with that, let me call on Congressman Jones.
I'm proud to be here today with the distinguished Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Chuck Schumer, my friend and colleague in local government, Supervisor George Hoehmann, and the town board here in Clarkstown. And obviously, I'm also happy to be in the community that raised me here in Rockland County to address a very important issue, and that is the crisis of PFAS contamination here in Rockland County, and as you just heard from the Majority Leader in other parts of New York State. And specifically, we are calling on the EPA to do something about this problem, to investigate and also to promulgate a rule that actually would regulate the levels at which this contaminant would be acceptable for consumption. Safe, clean drinking water is a basic human right. No one here in Rockland or anywhere else in the country should ever have to wonder if the water that we drink is harming us. And that's why it was so startling to learn late last year, as you heard, that more than 300,000 Rockland residents may be denied this basic right. PFAS contamination of nearly twice the New York State limit was found in wells throughout the county. But the necessary steps to remedy this issue and prevent future contamination have not yet been taken by the EPA. That's where Senator Schumer and I come in. We are determined to get this addressed, and it's why we have called on the EPA to move with urgency and to assist New York State in determining the source of the PFAS contamination here in Rockland County, as well as work to decontaminate the water source as quickly as possible, a call that we both, in fact all of us today, reiterate. So I want to thank Senator Schumer for his critical leadership on this, as with so many other issues, as well as our local activists, as you just heard, including the Rockland Water Coalition, which has just been doing tremendous work in getting this problem addressed. And they have been tireless in that effort. Together, I have no doubt that we will get this done, that we will see action from the EPA, and that we will not have to worry about this moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mondaire. Next, we're going to hear from our Supervisor Hoehmann when we clean up.
Good afternoon, and thank you again. First, I want to say what an honor it is to have Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones here in the town of Clarkstown this morning. It's good to have such great partners at the federal level in government working together for the residents of Clarkstown, Rockland County, and the state of New York. I'm proud that we live in a state that has been at the forefront of protecting our citizens with clean and safe drinking water standards. New York's led the way in strict water quality regulations. And today, I and the town board stand with Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones in support of the federal government regulating water quality across the nation by asking the EPA to set MCL for PFAS in drinking water, so communities like Clarkstown are supported with data collection and monitoring for public water systems. We're very fortunate to have a leader like Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones who are fighting for this and working to protect the health and safety of all of our residents so that we have great access to clean and safe water. And while we're here in West Nyack, I want to take a moment again to thank Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones for their support and federal funding for the Klein Avenue Levee project just down the river about a mile from here. We held a groundbreaking there just 2 weeks ago today, on the $6.3 million project, and work's already underway. The project had been discussed for about 30 years, and it will help alleviate severe flooding for residents and businesses in West Nyack and remove scores of homes from the floodplain, decreasing their high flood insurance. The majority of that funding is from the federal government. And Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones have been extraordinarily helpful in not only obtaining the funding, but clearing hurdles. In fact, we were held up on our Army Corps of Engineer permit for 16 months, and we contacted Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones, and we got a permit in about 10 days once they intervened. So we are very thankful for the funding, and we're very thankful for all that you're doing on behalf of our residents. I and the town board thank you. Together we're fixing that problem that's plagued West Nyack for over 50 years. That's what government's all about. It's supposed to be us working together to fix problems. And infrastructure projects like these are important projects. So again, Senator, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for the new legislation you're introducing.
Thank you, George. County Legislator Cornell.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Senator Schumer. Senator Schumer is one elected official who goes all over the state, He's known for his great interest in following up on the problems that each different community has. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
I chair the legislature's environmental committee, as well as the county and community task force on water resources management. We are going to be holding, I've been working with the Rockland County Department of Health. We're holding an informational forum on Wednesday evening, May 5th. It will be virtual. Notices will be coming out very soon. People from the New York State Department of Health will be present. Hopefully we also have somebody coming from New York State DEC that's been involved in these PFAS issues, and a number of other people. I want to say, Senator Schumer, that I'm really glad you raised the issue of the numbers of chemicals that are included, because there are many outstanding scientists that believe that you have to deal with these as a class, right, and not as individual kinds of chemicals. So we're all learning about this, and I invite you to put this on your calendar and watch for notices, or call the legislature. We'll put you on the mailing list. Thank you very much, and thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, Harriet.
It's been more than 40 years.
More than 40 years. Can I say you had one? Okay, we next have Peggy Kurtz, the great leader of the Rockland Water Coalition.
Would you prefer for me to use the microphone or to just speak?
I think that is fine.
It's okay. Yeah. Okay. My name is Peggy Kurtz. I'm the leader of Rockland's. I live in Nyack, and I'm the leader of Rockland Sierra Club and one of the leaders of the Rockland Water Coalition, which has brought together a powerful network of local, state, and national organizations to address the problem of PFAS contamination in our drinking water. We want to thank Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones for their strong response to the emerging crisis of toxic chemicals in Rockland's drinking water and in the drinking water of thousands of other communities across the country. I'm here today to speak for the hundreds of thousands of Rockland residents who are worried today about whether their drinking water is truly safe. Like lead, PFAS is toxic at even the lowest detectable levels, and it is ubiquitous. It wasn't until lead was strictly regulated that blood levels began to drop precipitously for lead. We can do the same with PFAS. As with lead, we will also need Congress to ban non-essential uses too. The EPA has announced their intention to regulate 2 PFAS chemicals, PFOA and PFOS. That's a good first step, but it's hardly enough. Regulating only 2 chemicals would still leave Americans exposed to all the other chemicals in this very large class of 9,200 highly toxic chemicals. We need strong, enforceable standards for the entire class of PFAS chemicals. EPA has not regulated a single new chemical in drinking water in over 20 years. This is just unacceptable. Further delay will leave millions of people, including infants and children, exposed to serious risks for years. I speak for Rockland families when I say that there are no acceptable levels of any toxic PFAS chemicals in our drinking water. We join Senator Schumer and Congressman Jones in calling on the EPA for decisive action now to require testing, to set a combined standard, and to regulate all PFAS chemicals as a class, and to do so now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least is Jeremy Cherson of the River Keeper.
Thank you so much, Senator Schumer, Congressman Jones, and all the other elected officials here today. My name is Jeremy Cherson. I represent Riverkeeper. We protect the Hudson River, and we also protect the drinking water of New Yorkers in New York City and all across the Hudson Valley. This is going to require an all-government response. Just like the Biden administration is calling on the whole government to deal with climate change, we need the whole government to deal with water contamination. We need the state government, the federal government to come to the aid of Rockland County and all of New York's communities that face this contamination. We need to filter the contamination, find its source, and hold the polluters accountable. The governor has a role here too, and so does DEC. We need residents to call the administration, call DEC, and urge them to find the contamination source as soon as possible and get the water filtered. Investigate and remediate the pollution as soon as possible. And because we've heard that Rockland County's water also comes from New Jersey, the EPA needs to step in as well, as we have heard from Senator Schumer, Congressman Jones, and others here today. We need to protect everyone from these chemicals across the country. EPA is considering standards for these same two chemicals, PFAS and PFOA, but EPA should set federal drinking standards for PFOA and PFAS that are at least as strong as the most stringent state standards. There are a patchwork of standards across the country. New York is one of which, Michigan, Vermont, many others have standards. They're all different, and they all protect different types of chemicals at different levels. We need the EPA standards to be as strong as possible, as comprehensive as possible. We need to regulate PFAS and restrict all non-essential uses of these chemicals. We must urge New York State and EPA to set the national standards, as we heard, for the full family of the 9,000 chemicals in the PFAS family. Health experts are saying that we need to do this. These chemicals are persistent and toxic, and they must be regulated as a class. Again, Rockland's contamination demonstrates the need. Of the 8 different PFAS chemicals detected in Rockland's water source, 2 are regulated by New York State, but each is regulated in at least one other state. Massachusetts has taken the step towards this goal by regulating the combined total of 6 PFAS chemicals. Washington State has also taken a step towards banning non-essential uses by identifying PFAS containing food packaging that can be replaced with non-PFAS materials. There are many other materials that we could get PFAS out of, and EPA should move swiftly to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeremy.